Hi there, Mark here again, and welcome to part 2 of my build guide for the awesome Tamiya Super Astute 2018 re-release. We got this far last time, that's up to the end of step 11, and using all the parts in parts bag A, so now it's time to open parts bag B and jump straight in on step 12, which is building the gearbox. So as usual, get all your parts matched up to the diagram on the left, so you know you've got everything ready for this step. Get part A4 and make sure it's lined up as it is in the diagram, and we've got this little step here to do, which is putting the bearing in the 850, and then you've got this jig which is part A6. So just pop the bearing into that hole there and then pop your jig into place, and that's going to hold your lovely aluminium motor plate or gearbox plate. Again, copy the alignment of the diagram, and that hole goes over that little jig, and hopefully now all the holes will line up. I'm going to put my first 3x30 screw in that hole, and then you've got your tiny little press nut that's going to screw onto that the other side. So yeah, just get the screwdriver and we'll do that up, and you should feel that press nut biting into the plastic. Put my other press nut in this bottom hole here. Get the next 3x30 screw in, and the last press nut goes in this hole here, like so. Get a third of those 3 long screws in. Then you've got this 5x35.5mm shaft. It's not really easy to see how this goes, but I think this goes right in the middle. It does sit into the plastic. Flip that over, and then we'll just put in the 3x10mm screw in that hole there and screw into that aluminium bar. Okay, and it should look like this when you're finished. On to step 13, which is making up the differential gear, but first don't forget to take out that shim, that jig from the gearbox, because we're going to need that again. Get your spur gear or the case, and I think you need to pop that jig up into the middle. And I've also put some of the AW grease that's applied into all the little holes down there, because we're going to be slotting the little gears into those. Then I'm going to pop that brass pinion in the middle and get some more AW grease on that with a brush. Good sticky stuff this is. Then I'm going to pop in the second one of those brass pinions and do the same with the grease. And now it's important to get these 4 little pinions in the right direction. You can see some of them go up and some go down. So I'm going to pop this one in with the gear at the bottom and the longer kind of rod at the top. Pop that down there. Should locate in the hole. Hope you can see that. Get some more of that AW grease on it. And the gear that goes next to it has got to have the teeth at the top and the longer rod at the bottom, so it's going to go in like so. So you've got one facing up and one facing down, and I think they're going to engage on the 2 gears in the middle differently. A bit more grease, and so I've never seen a diff like this before, but it looks like the one of the planetary gears is acting on that lower of those brass gears, and the other one is operated on the higher, or the upper of those brass gears. They're a bit wobbly until I get the top cap on, but get plenty of grease in there. I don't think you can have too much grease. The next gear, we're going to have the teeth at the top and the long bar at the bottom, and that's going to go in like so. There you go. And the last one is going to go in with the teeth at the bottom. Hopefully you can just about see that now with the up and down gears. Just going to finish off with a little bit more grease. Then we're just going to pop the cap on, which is part H1. There are little keys in this, so it can only go on in the correct direction or in the correct alignment. There we go, and you can see the ends of those little pinions are sticking up into the holes. And I think, my friends, that is it, apart from putting the 4 screws in, which are these tiny little 2x6 countersunks. As I say, there's 4 to go in, the 4 holes that are left. I need my smaller screwdriver for this, but I wouldn't go too crazy on those little screws because you'll just strip the plastic out. And there you go, that's your finished differential. On to step 14, which is attaching the differential gear, or putting the differential gear in. So basically get hold of the diff. You've got your large 1680 bearings, one pops on each side. A nice tight fit. And then we just drop that into the gearbox housing. Nice click as it goes in, and just get some grease onto that. You don't need to get it into every tooth, you can just spread it on liberally and it'll disperse itself when it's running up against the other gear, which is this counter gear H6, and again we're fitting the bearings in 1115 the one end and the little 850 in the other. Get some more grease onto all these teeth. Then we can pop that onto this shaft, push it all the way in. There we go. Then you've got plastic part A1, and that's going to sit over there. There is a pin that's going to sit in the middle of that bar in the middle. Sits in the machine spaces quite nicely, and then you've got these tiny little 3x6 machine screws that hold that cover on. Like so, and then it's simply a case of getting part A2, the cap that just sits on there and holds the diff in place, secure with 3x10 countersunk tapping screws. Just get those done up, and that's the end of step 14. Okay then, step 15 is the spur gear, but it's actually the slipper clutch, or the traction control system, whatever they call it, but we'll just get that made up. Start off with the slipper shaft, which is this black thing, and then I've already clipped on the 6mm E-clip, as you can see there. Should go like that. And here's the actual spur gear itself. As you can see though, I've actually stuck on what it's called these slipper sheets. There's one on either side, and it does say here to temporary super glue into place, or CA glue in place, which is what I've done. Then get your MB20, which is a pressure disc B, it says, with that kind of star shape. That goes over. Then your spur gear. And the other pressure plate, which is your MB19. Just pop that on. Should locate. Then you've got your slipper spring, and what's called a spring retainer. It's like a top hat with the flange at the top. Just pop that on, and then somehow we've got to try and get your 4mm lock nut to engage on the end of the threads. It's going to take a bit of pressing to get that on, so I'll just use my box wrench to help push it into place. Yeah, good bit of pressure, and it does locate, and we've got that on the threads now, and it says screw it all the way up as tight as it'll go. And once that's done, you've got to turn it back 2 3/4 turns. So I'll try and get this right. Half, 1, 1.5, 2, 2.5, 2 3/4. I hope that's right, but we can always adjust it later. Then we've just got to pop on the plastic gear H2. It is shown with a hex on the picture there. It isn't, it's kind of like a star, if you could see, but that's what comes in the kit. And it should look like this at the end of the step. Step 16 is attaching the spur gear. First thing we're going to do is get this part A3. And you might be able to see there's a little notch just where my fingernail is there. You just see that? That's got to line up in this hole here, and there is a little lug sticking out, you might just be able to see. But basically, we've got to get that, give it a good push, and it should be completely flush with the surface of the gearbox, so nice and flat. Get your little 850 bearing and just push that into that part. and get your spur gear and push it through that hole. Make sure it meshes up with the other gear, and it should just pop out the other side there. Then you've got part H3, and there's a tiny little lip on one side, and that lip needs to point towards the gearbox itself. Pop that over, and then it's just a 4mm E-clip that's going to hold all that together. There we go, always easier said than done. Make sure it all moves freely and it's meshing up with the other gear. We'll get a little bit more grease onto that gear there, and that's the end of step 16. Step 17 is attaching the gearbox, so we need to get our chassis out for this. And then your gearbox assembly is going to fit down in this hole here. Pop into place, turn it over. 3x10 self-tapper goes in the one hole at the back. Just get that to hold the gearbox in place. And turn it back over. Got your two hex spacers. They're going to pop into these holes in the gearbox housing itself. Got my fingers on them, so I'm going to turn it over, and we've got the two 3x8 machine screws that's going to go screw into those posts. Just get these done up, and that's the end of step 17. So there you go, that's one of the smoothest gearboxes I've ever felt. It's really nice the way that spins around, and the whole buggy's coming together really well. It's been a really enjoyable build so far. It's got some nice design features on it. For example, you can get to this little cover here and remove those three screws, and you can get to the diff without having to take all the rear end apart, which is yeah, really cool. Anyway, just a short one this time. That's the end of parts bag B. Thanks for watching, hope you've enjoyed it, and I hope you join me on the next one where we'll be starting on parts bag C. Cheers, bye.